From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. Greg, it's always good to have you join us every Wednesday here. Yes, for our live stream. And today, this is a tough topic. It's been 1 week since prominent conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed during his event at Utah Valley University. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, as we've been reporting, is facing 7 charges. The death penalty is being talked about as well in this case, Greg. But, Greg, our focus today, Kirk's killing has mostly sparked outrage, but some people have made insensitive comments and even expressed happiness and joy regarding his murder. These comments, Greg, have resulted in people either being suspended or losing their jobs outright for expressing hateful speech in and out of the workplace. Some of those are institutions here in East Tennessee and in other parts of the state. We'll get to those in just a moment. And I would like for you watching to share any questions you have here in the comments section while we talk about what constitutes free speech. So that's the question for you, Greg. Let's explain the First Amendment in the workplace, and generally it doesn't apply to private businesses.
Correct. And Lori, first, let me say that the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a horrific and senseless act of violence. And it's not a blue question, red question, purple question. It is a horrific, senseless act of violence. And as the debate unfolds now, we see things with social media, the monolith that we live in. You see comments, and people get what I call keyboard strong. They get keyboard angry. They spew vitriolic, acrimonious things. And in this case, it has come back to haunt people.
But, we're not talking about people who are employees in a workplace, not in leadership positions. That doesn't take away the sting from what these are. But many people have expressed outright shock at some of the leadership positions and some of the vitriol that is coming from those.
And a lot of people that are making these comments want to run and hide and cloak themselves behind the First Amendment. And, the First Amendment is very powerful. That's why when our founding fathers got together in Philadelphia, it was number one.
And I think a lot of people don't understand the First Amendment. They
Right.
think, hey, free speech, free for all.
They think, and Lori, that I don't think the founding fathers or I could have said it any better. It's free speech. The exercise of free speech cannot be prohibited or abridged, but it is not a free-for-all. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to make comments and you want to be that person, just realize that and when you're analyzing free speech in the workplace, there are 2 parallel trains. And let's look at the private sector first, because there are a ton of employees that have been placed on administrative leave and have lost their employment based on comments they have made on social media about the Charlie Kirk killing, the homicide.
So what are the rules for private versus public?
There is no First Amendment protection for comments of this nature in the workplace. Most states are like Tennessee. You are an employee at will. And that means legally exactly what it says. You work at the pleasure and the will of your employer. Typically,
at the whim, even?
At the whim sometimes. Typically the boundaries of being an employee at will, if you're discriminated based on your age, race, sex, ethnic origin, that can call in some legal protections under the Civil Rights Act. There's also some core protections set forth by the National Labor Relations Board. But by and large, in the private sector, if an employer says, I don't think this is a positive reflection on our core beliefs and values, you can be terminated.
All right, so that's the private sector. What about public employees? And let's define who they are.
Well, anytime that you are working for the government, then your constitutional rights kick in, so to speak. They're triggered. And if you are a government employee and you exercise your free speech, you do have some protection, but it's not unlimited and it's not carte blanche. And actually, the First Amendment works, in my opinion, to protect the entity, institution, or employer more than the employee.
And really, wasn't it designed for that?
Well, it's if you look at the history, but let's talk about when there's an issue of free speech by government. The test is it's the Pickering-Connick test, and
That's
it's
kind of a balancing.
It's a balance test, and it's twofold. One, is the speech a matter of public concern? Okay, so if the answer is yes, you go to the second prong of the Pickering-Connick test. If no, you stop right there. If it is a matter of public concern, did the employee, or the analysis of the courts kind of flips it. Did the entity or institution, did the government have adequate justification for terminating, eliminating that exercise of free speech? And the test is very broad and very simple. If the speech impacts the effective and efficient operation of the governmental entity, then the government is justified in taking whatever disciplinary action they feel is justified.
Okay, I want to go deeper into this and really answer this question. And again, weigh in on what you think about some of these comments that some people have said that have led to the loss of their jobs. We hear talk all the time about hate speech, right? Let's talk about what hate speech really is. Where is the line between, say, a scandalous comment and illegal speech?
Well, again, when you look at matters of public concern, the First Amendment and our laws really is, and how the courts interpret those, they give them their judicial gloss, is a reflection of our societal mores, folkways, and norms. And you look through the fulcrum or the prism of how comments are acceptable and comments are not acceptable. So again, there have been instances where our Supreme Court has upheld very vile hate speech, where there was a group that loosely claimed to be a Baptist church that would go to veterans' funerals with signs that were laced with profanity and heckle the family. But then again, they're not employees. So it's a different environment. But when you look at these comments, and you look at it through the prism of current mores, folkways, et cetera, and you make a comment that it impairs the effective and efficient operation of, and let's use, I think, the best analogy that we've seen, a school, a university, an institution, then,
This week, due to a Facebook post immediately following his murder, celebrating that fact. So it's more than a keyboard warrior, because these are public names. Their name is out there.
Well, their name is out there, and they know that they're
say?
being followed by students, by university, by
Correct.
staff, and their representatives. And I think, those universities have the right to exercise their First Amendment rights to say, we don't want employees that impede and impair the effective operation in the classroom, how it reflects on our core beliefs as a university. And we have clearly just cause for discipline, termination, et cetera.
Tantamount to teaching violence.
Well, it's tantamount to showing hate. That you're going to have a classroom, someone that's supposed to be a leader, someone that's supposed to educate, and then the students see these horrific, crass, acrimonious, vitriolic comments. So the reaction has been swift, the action has been severe, but the lesson is you cannot hide behind the First Amendment if you are saying things in the context of an employer-employee relationship.
We've been talking about public institutions here and private ones as well here in Tennessee. Let's go broader because I know this is happening all over the country. MSNBC fired senior political analyst Matthew Dowd last week for suggesting that Charlie Kirk's own rhetoric could have contributed to his death. So he's gone.
Gone.
Shown the door.
Showing the door. And that was well within their rights as an employer, a private employer, because it did not, according to MSNBC, reflect their core values and beliefs. Now, remember, people are an employee at will, with the exception of if you have a employment contract or you have an employee handbook that rise to the level of a employment agreement. But in each of those scenarios, typically there are clauses that says moral turpitude clauses that govern your behavior, govern your conduct that would reflect poorly on your employer.
Don't embarrass the company.
Don't embarrass the company. But you know what's amazing about this is the uniformity of whether it's private sector or public employers, the swiftness and uniformity of how they're addressing comments condoning violence.
Very interesting. And I want to read, speaking of comments, we just got this yesterday. UT football coach Josh Heupel was asked, actually it was on Monday, whether Kirk's murder had any effect on the team. Did you see what he said? He responded, "I can't speak to that. I was made aware late in the week. I think everybody individually responds to something like that as an individual person. I think anytime there are major events that transpire in a negative way," Coach Heupel said, "it's the self-reflection of society and how fortunate you are as a human being with the opportunities you have." What do you think about that statement?
You know, it's an excellent statement, and not to deprecate Coach Heupel, but out of all the statements that have come from all the pundits, theologians, whatever, that's one of the most astute, introspective comments that I've heard by Coach Heupel. And, you know, he talks about how when something like this happens, you know, it causes a self-reflection of society.
Welcome back, everyone, to our conversation about comments made after the death of Charlie Kirk last week. And We do have one comment that states, it says, Constitution states that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, which protects individuals' rights to express themselves without government interferences. Let's weigh in.
Well, let's weigh in. Recently, the Supreme Court in the Garcetti case said that public employees, Gil Garcetti, the famous DA that prosecuted O.J., he was involved in the Menendez case. He was sued by a number of his employees, district attorneys, and the Supreme Court analyzed the Pickering-Connick test, and basically they said if your comments, if you're a public employee, impede the effective and efficient operation of the entity institution, there is just cause to discipline you and to limit, constrain, and forbid your First Amendment rights. So, you know, the Constitution is a living, breathing document, but here's what we're seeing in this.
So you just gave updated information that no longer applies. Just
it's been interpreted over and over and over. But when you have the context of the workplace, statements that are condoning violence or saying violence is deserved do not pass constitutional muster. But you know what you also see is people, and it's pretty simple. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, often it's a duck. And people try to make a comment about this horrific, senseless shooting, and then they'll preface it or dance around it by quoting Charlie Kirk comments that they disagreed with or whatever, and then kind of hide behind, oh, by the way, it was not a good thing. But that's not the tone or the tenor of the message. So just realize, that the First Amendment, the constitutional tap dancing, where you feel compelled to make a negative statement, and it's a negative statement in sheep's clothing. I mean, a positive statement in sheep's clothing, where really you're trying to disparage this or say it's deserved, will not work in this scenario.
All right, there we go. Okay, I hope we answered your question, and thank you for weighing in. Let's talk about, as I mentioned earlier, we were going to, who was Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was 31 years old, conservative activist. He toured the country, typically college campuses. He was just here at UT last spring to speak and debate openly with crowd members. He founded Turning Point USA, Greg, when he was 18 years old, went to community college for a little while, but he was a self-taught person. Read 100 books a year, talked about the importance of that. Turning Point USA, let's talk about what kind of group that is. Obviously very conservative, nonprofit. The mission to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote the principles of freedom, free markets, and limited government. Right now, Turning Point USA has about 900 official college chapters and 1,200 high school chapters. And following Kirk's murder, there have been more than 37,000 inquiries from people wishing to start new chapters where they are.
Yeah, he was an author. He had a podcast. But the thing that I like when you talk about the First Amendment and how it has become central to the discussion of this assassination is he was renowned for debating the other side of the issue and tried to facilitate that discourse on college campuses.
In a very civil fashion.
In a very
People on both sides will say.
Right. So that to me, is one of the hallmarks of Charlie Kirk. When you talk about the First Amendment, he was very big on hearing the other person's point of view. So, when we go back to the First Amendment, employers, employees, what Charlie Kirk said or didn't say isn't the issue. The issue is the senseless, horrific, violent assassination, and you don't have the right under the First Amendment to directly or indirectly, as an employee, condone it. But here's the slippery slope. Unless you are selfly made destitute or selfly made where you don't have to work, everybody's an employee. So when you make those statements, just to realize, you can run but you can't hide from the First Amendment. So wherever
You can still
work,
be dealt with. How so, though?
yeah. And the other thing is,
I mean, if you're not working, what's the damage to you? You can be banned from.
Social media will find you.
Yeah.
And I tell clients, please don't comment on your case or this or that after a glass of wine or a few beers, because you know what? The algorithms that are out there, Google, all of that.
Someone's always watching, and whatever you say will always be there.
Will always be there. Delete, as we say. Our mantra, delete doesn't mean delete.
Let's talk about this 22-year-old Tyler Robinson and his arrest. He initially evaded law enforcement. We were covering that following the national news before surrendering to authorities at his family's behest on the evening of September 11th. And Greg, as we mentioned, he's facing 7 charges, and these are under Utah law, right? So what about the death penalty here?
I think the death penalty, well, the governor has said the death penalty is on the table. And Lori, I am telling you, the chances are on a scale of 1 to 10, 20,
Yeah.
on 1 to 100,
110,
200,
yeah.
100%. So I think you are going to see this made a capital case swiftly.
What do you make of the text messages that have come to light between Robinson and his partner?
I think that's a slippery slope we all want to get into. I really don't care about Robinson's background or his
Or what was in his head.
What was in his head, because no matter what was in his head, it was evil, wrong, whatever, and so the focus is on the actions
And
whatever.
the reactions.
Now, if you're defending him, obviously you want to look at his mens rea and have experts deep dive all that.
But there's a lot of evidence.
There's a lot of evidence, and when you talk about the death penalty, I think the